The locksmith pointed at my lock and asked how many people had been inside this week. The locksmith was crouched at my door when he said it. How many people have been inside this week? I blinked at the back of his head. Gray hair, thinning, a bald spot shaped like a lima bean. His name was Gerald, and he had calluses on his fingers thick enough to sandwood. Just me, I said. Why? He didn't answer right away. Just traced his finger along the brass plate around my deadbolt. Slow, methodical, like a doctor examining an x-ray. These scratches. I leaned closer. The metal around the keyhole was scored with dozens of tiny marks. Thin, angular, overlapping. I'd never noticed them before. Someone's been picking this lock, Gerald said. He glanced up at me, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. Multiple times. I'd say at least a dozen in the past month. The hallway seemed to tilt. That's not, I started, but my voice came out wrong. That's impossible. I'm the only one with a key. Gerald stood, knees popping. He was maybe 60, wearing a denim shirt with his company logo on the chest. Patterson Locks and Security, serving Westchester since 1987. 23 years in this business, he said. I've seen every kind of lock damage there is. Break-ins, forced entry, amateur jobs with bobby pins. This? He gestured at my door. This was professional. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. And they've been doing it a lot. My blood ran cold. I thought about every night I'd slept in that apartment. Every night I'd locked the door, checked it twice, told myself I was safe. I thought about the coffee mug. Let me back up. I'm Sarah, 31 years old. I work as a project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm in White Plains. Nothing glamorous, but the pay is decent and I like my team. I've lived alone for 6 years, ever since my college roommate moved to Portland, and I decided I liked having my own space more than I liked splitting rent. My apartment is a one-bedroom in a converted Victorian on Maple Avenue. 3rd floor, corner unit. Original hardwood floors, a clawfoot tub I never use, and a bay window that overlooks the parking lot. I'm not a paranoid person. I never have been. I grew up in a small town where people didn't lock their doors. I moved to the city for college, learned to be careful, but I never became one of those people who triple checks everything. I trusted my instincts. I trusted my neighborhood. I trusted that if something was wrong, I would know. For 3 weeks before the locksmith came, I'd been telling myself I was imagining things. It started small, the kind of stuff you brush off without thinking. A coffee mug. I always leave my mug on the left side of my kitchen counter, next to the Keurig. It's a white mug with a chip on the handle and the words, "World's Okayest Sister," printed on the side. A gift from my younger sister Leah, who thinks she's funny. One evening in early October, I came home from work and found the mug in the sink. Not on the counter. In the sink. Rinsed clean. I stared at it for maybe 30 seconds. Tried to remember if I'd moved it that morning. I must have, right? I told myself I must have. The second thing was the curtains. My bedroom has these heavy velvet curtains, deep burgundy, inherited from the previous tenant. I always keep them closed at night, always. The street-facing window looks out onto Maple Avenue, and even though I'm on the 3rd floor, I don't like the idea of anyone being able to see in. 3 days after the coffee mug incident, I woke up at 6:14 a.m. to sunlight streaming across my face. The curtains were open. Not all the way. Just a foot, maybe 18 inches. Enough to let in the morning light. Enough to let someone on the street see my bed. I sat up, heart pounding. Did I forget to close them? I couldn't remember. Of course you forgot. You were exhausted. You went to bed at midnight. That's what I told myself. I got up, closed the curtains, and went to work. But something felt wrong. Like a splinter under my skin I couldn't see. The cologne came next. It happened on a Thursday, October 19th. I remember the date because it was my mother's birthday, and I'd stopped at the store after work to buy her a card. I got home around 6:30, walked up the 3 flights of stairs, unlocked my door, stepped inside, and smelled it. Men's cologne. Sharp, woodsy, slightly sweet. The kind of scent you notice immediately in a space where it doesn't belong. I froze in my doorway. The smell was everywhere. Strong, recent. Someone had been here. My heart hammered against my ribs. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911, and swept through the apartment. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, closet, nothing. Nobody. Just the smell, lingering in the hallway like a ghost. I stood in my living room shaking, trying to make sense of it. I checked the windows, all locked from the inside. I checked the door. No signs of forced entry. My laptop was still on the coffee table. My jewelry box was untouched. Nothing was missing. Nothing was damaged. Just the cologne. Just that smell. I called my sister. Leah, I think someone was in my apartment. What? I heard her TV playing in the background. Some reality show. What do you mean? I came home and there was cologne. Men's cologne. In my hallway. A pause. Maybe it was the maintenance guy or a neighbor. It was inside my apartment after I locked the door. Sarah, Leah's voice had that tone. The one she uses when she thinks I'm being ridiculous. Stress does weird things to memory. You've been working crazy hours. Maybe you passed someone in the stairwell and didn't notice. It was inside. Just take a bath. Pour some wine. I'm sure it's nothing. She hung up. I called my mom next. She was worse. Honey, she said in that soft, concerned voice that always made me feel 12 years old. You've always had an anxious mind. Remember in high school? The panic attacks? Mom, this is different. Is it? She sighed. I'm not saying you're making it up. I'm saying maybe you should talk to someone. A therapist. Someone professional who can help you work through these feelings. I don't need a therapist. I need someone to believe me. I do believe you. I believe that you believe something is wrong. I just think sometimes our minds play tricks on us. I hung up feeling more alone than ever. My best friend Dana was the bluntest. We'd been close since college. The kind of friend who knows your deepest secrets and still shows up with ice cream when when you're having a breakdown. I trusted her opinion more than almost anyone's. "You're being dramatic," she said. We were at a coffee shop near my office. I'd pulled up photos on my phone, the coffee mug, the open curtains, as if documenting them would prove I wasn't crazy. "I'm not being dramatic. Things are moving in my apartment." "Sarah," Dana stirred her latte, not meeting my eyes. "I love you, but you know how you get sometimes. Remember last year when you thought your neighbor was spying on you, and it turned out his security camera was pointed at his own parking spot? This is different. Is it? Or are you just stressed about work and looking for something to worry about?" I opened my mouth, closed it. Maybe she was right. Maybe they were all right. Maybe I was losing it. I almost let it go. I spent the next 2 weeks trying to convince myself that nothing was wrong. I double-checked my locks at night. I paid closer attention to where I put things. I told myself that if something was really happening, there would be evidence. Real evidence, not just feelings. October 31st, Halloween. I came home late from a work event, some industry mixer my boss insisted everyone attend. I was exhausted, slightly buzzed from 2 glasses of cheap wine, and ready to fall into bed. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and there it was again. The cologne, stronger this time, fresh. I didn't call anyone. I didn't cry. I just stood in my hallway, breathing through my mouth to avoid the smell, and something in my chest turned hard and cold. This is real. This is happening, and no one believes me. The next morning, I called a locksmith. Gerald Patterson arrived at 9:47 a.m. on November 1st. He was the 3rd company I'd called. The first 2 couldn't come until the following week. Gerald said he could be there in an hour. He walked through my apartment with a practiced eye, checking windows, doors, and latches. He took notes on a small spiral pad. He asked careful questions. How long had I lived here? Had I ever had roommates? Had I given anyone a spare key? No. Then he crouched at my front door, and that's when he saw the scratches. "Someone's been picking this lock," he said. "Multiple times. I'd say at least a dozen in the past month." "Are you sure?" He looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much. "Ma'am, I've been doing this 23 years. I'm sure." I called the police from my kitchen, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Dispatch sent a patrol officer, a young guy named Officer Derek Molina, barely out of his 20s, with a close-cropped haircut and a wedding ring he kept twisting nervously. He took notes. He looked at the door. He asked me questions I'd already answered. Did I have any enemies? Any ex-boyfriends? Any disputes with neighbors? No. "Have you noticed anything missing?" "No." "Any signs of forced entry other than these scratches?" "No." "Any witnesses?" "Just the locksmith." Officer Molina closed his notebook. He handed me a pamphlet, Home Security Tips, Protecting Your Residence, and told me to change my locks. "That's it?" My voice cracked. "Someone's been breaking into my apartment for a month, and that's it?" "Ma'am, without more evidence, there's not much we can do. If you catch anyone on camera or if anything goes missing, give us a call." He left. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the pamphlet. If you catch anyone on camera. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak made me jump. Every distant car door, every footstep in the hallway. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape. At 2:17 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely. I sat on my couch, staring at the front door, and had an idea. My laptop. I positioned it on my bookshelf, angled so the webcam had a clear view of the front door and the hallway beyond. I opened Photo Booth, hit record, and propped the screen low enough that it wouldn't be obvious. Then I went to bed. I don't know when I finally fell asleep. 4 a.m. maybe. Later. The next morning, I woke at 7:22. Early light was streaming through my bedroom curtains, which were still closed. Nothing happened. That was my first thought. Relief washed over me, cool and sweet. It was all in my head. I overreacted. I'm fine. I shuffled into the living room, rubbing sleep from my eyes. Then I saw the laptop. It was still recording. 14 hours of footage according to the timestamp. I sat down on the couch, took a breath, hit play. The first few hours were nothing. Just my empty apartment, shadows shifting as cars passed on the street outside. Then, 3:17 a.m., my front door opened. A man walked in. He was wearing dark clothes, a black hoodie, black jeans, gloves. He moved slowly, carefully, like someone who'd done this many times before. He didn't fumble with the door. He didn't look around nervously. He walked in like he owned the place. I watched him go through my kitchen drawers. He opened and closed each one methodically, not taking anything, just looking, touching. He moved to the living room, picked up a book from my coffee table, a paperback I'd been reading, something forgettable, and flipped through the pages. Then he walked toward the hallway, toward my bedroom. I stopped breathing. On the screen, the man stopped at my bedroom door. It was open. I always leave it open. I like the airflow. And from the angle of the laptop, I could see him standing at the threshold. He didn't go in. He just stood there, watching. The timestamp ticked forward. 3:18, 3:19, 3:20. He didn't move. 3:21, 3:22. 11 minutes. For 11 minutes, he stood at my bedroom door, watching me sleep. At 3:28, he turned around, walked back through the living room, left through the front door, like it was nothing. I was shaking so badly I could barely operate the trackpad. I scrolled back to the moment he'd walked in, zoomed in on the frame, and that's when I saw his face. It was Marcus Donnelly. He'd worked at my company for 3 years, started about 6 months before me. Mid-30s, sandy hair, friendly smile. He worked in accounts, and we interacted maybe twice a week for budget reports. He'd been asking me to coffee for 6 months. It had started casually. "Hey, wanna grab a coffee? I'm running to Starbucks." I'd said yes a few times just to be polite. Then he started asking more often, every week, then twice a week. I started making excuses. "I'm busy. I brought my own. I'm cutting back on caffeine. He never pushed, never got angry. He just smiled and said maybe next time. But there was something in the way he looked at me. I brushed it off as awkward interest. The kind of one-sided crush that happens in every office. Nothing dangerous, just uncomfortable. Except now I was staring at his face on my laptop screen, 3:17 a.m., standing in my apartment without permission. He always knew my weekend plans before I mentioned them. I'd assumed he overheard conversations. He always offered to walk me to my car because he'd heard about break-ins in the area. He knew about the break-ins because he was the one breaking in. My hands stopped shaking. Something shifted inside me. I'd spent 3 weeks feeling crazy. 3 weeks being told I was paranoid, anxious, dramatic. 3 weeks questioning my own sanity while this man walked through my apartment like a shadow. Not anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, looking at his face frozen on the screen, and felt something cold settle in my chest. You thought I wouldn't catch you. You were wrong. I didn't call the police right away. I know that sounds crazy. I know the smart thing, the safe thing, would have been to pick up the phone immediately and dial 911. But I kept thinking about Officer Molina, his pamphlet, his wedding ring twisting nervously, his expression that said, "Lady, I've got real crimes to deal with. If you catch anyone on camera, give us a call." I had him on camera, but I wanted more. I spent the rest of that Sunday preparing. I copied the video file to a flash drive, twice to be safe. I uploaded it to cloud storage. I printed screenshots. Marcus opening my door, Marcus in my kitchen, Marcus standing at my bedroom door. 11 minutes. Frozen in time. I wrote down everything. Every strange detail from the past month. The coffee mug, the curtains, the cologne. I included dates and times whenever I could remember them. I called Gerald Patterson and asked if he'd be willing to provide a written statement about the lock scratches. He said yes without hesitation. I knew something was wrong the second I saw that door, he said. I'm glad you caught the bastard. I contacted a lawyer, a woman named Catherine Reyes who specialized in stalking cases. I'd found her through a quick Google search and an initial phone consultation that cost me $150. You have strong evidence, Catherine said after reviewing the video, but you need to be strategic about how you use it. Document everything. File a police report. And don't confront him alone under any circumstances. I had no intention of confronting him alone. I had a better idea. Monday morning, November 4th. I drove to work like nothing was wrong, parked in my usual spot, walked into the building at 8:47 just like every other day. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my hands were steady, my voice was calm, I was ready. Our weekly team meeting started at 9 a.m. 14 people in the conference room, everyone from marketing, plus a few people from accounts and operations. Marcus was already there when I walked in. He sat in his usual spot, third seat from the door, coffee cup in hand, that same friendly smile on his face. Morning, Sarah. His voice was warm, casual, normal. You look tired. Late night? I looked him dead in the eyes. Something like that. I sat down across from him. The flash drive was in my pocket. I could feel its weight like a stone. The meeting started. Routine updates, Q3 numbers, upcoming deadlines. At 9:23, our manager, a woman named Deborah Harding, who'd been with the company for 15 years, asked if anyone had announcements. I raised my hand. I have something to share with the team. Deborah nodded. Go ahead. I stood up, walked to the front of the room, plugged the flash drive into the conference room laptop. The projector hummed to life. Marcus was watching me with a curious expression. Slight confusion. No alarm yet. Before I show this, I said, I want everyone to know that I've already filed a police report. I've consulted with a lawyer, and I've provided copies of this footage to both. Confusion rippled through the room. Someone shifted in their chair. I hit play. The screen filled with the image of my hallway. The timestamp glowed in the corner. 3:17 a.m. The door opened. I didn't watch the video. I watched Marcus. His face went white the moment he recognized my apartment. By the time his figure on the screen walked into the kitchen, his hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned pale. The room was silent. On the screen, Marcus went through my drawers, picked up my book, walked toward the hallway, toward my bedroom. Someone gasped. I think it was Ellen from HR. The footage showed him standing at my bedroom door, still as a statue, watching. The timestamp ticked forward. 3:18, 3:19, 3:20, 11 minutes. When the video ended, nobody moved. Coffee cups sat frozen in midair. Eyes shifted between the screen and the real Marcus, who was still sitting in his chair, pale as paper. That's not, his voice cracked. He stood up, chair scraping against the floor. I can explain. Explain what? My voice didn't shake. Not even a little. The lock you've been picking for a month? The cologne you left in my hallway? I held up the documents I'd brought. A folder containing the police report, Gerald Patterson's written statement, screenshots from the video, a printout of Catherine Reyes's letterhead confirming she was representing me. I've already filed everything, I said. I just thought your coworkers should know who they're sitting next to. Marcus looked at the door. Security's already on the way, Deborah said. Her voice was ice. Sit down, he sat. It took them 11 minutes to arrive. I counted every second. 2 security officers, a man and a woman, appeared in the conference room doorway. One of them had a hand on his radio. The other was already reaching for handcuffs. Marcus Donnelly? He didn't answer. He just stared at me with an expression I'll never forget. Not anger, not fear, betrayal. Like I'd done something wrong to him. They escorted him out of the building. I watched through the conference room window as they walked him across the parking lot to a waiting police car. He never looked back. Detective Naomi Chandler was assigned to my case that afternoon. She was in her 40s, sharp-featured, with short short gray hair, and a voice that sounded like she'd heard every terrible story humanity had to offer. 22 years with the Westchester County Police Department, 11 in special victims. The video is damning, she said, sitting across from me in an interview room at the station. But it only proves he entered your apartment once. We need more if we're going to make a stalking charge stick. What about the locksmith statement? He said my lock was picked at least a dozen times. It helps, but it's circumstantial. Unless we find additional evidence, items in his possession, photographs, journals, a good defense attorney could argue it was a one-time incident. She paused. Do you mind if we search his apartment? I didn't mind. The warrant was issued at 4:47 p.m. What they found haunts me to this day. I wasn't there for the search. Detective Chandler filled me in the next morning, her voice carefully neutral, like she was reading a grocery list instead of describing a nightmare. One wall of his bedroom was covered in photographs, she said. Hundreds of them. All of you. My stomach turned. You at the grocery store, at the gym, through your windows at night. Some were taken from inside your apartment while you weren't there. She slid a folder across the table. I don't recommend looking, but if you need to see for yourself, I opened it. The first photo was me at the farmer's market on Maple Street. I was holding a bag of apples, squinting in the sunlight. I remembered that day. I'd worn a yellow sundress. The second was me at the gym, on the treadmill, headphones in, completely unaware. The third was me through my own bedroom window, curtains open 6 inches, changing clothes. I closed the folder. There's more, Chandler said. He had a box of items he'd stolen from your apartment. A hairbrush, hair still in it, a pillowcase from your bed, a shirt you'd reported missing 3 months ago, and journals. Journals? He'd been writing about you, every day, for 14 months. 14 months. The entries are detailed. Your schedule, your habits, conversations you had with coworkers, things you said on phone calls. She paused. He was listening, Ms. Chen. For over a year, he was watching and listening to everything. The arrest made local news. White Plains man arrested in stalking case. Coworker caught on camera breaking into victim's apartment. The article included his company headshot, that friendly smile, those harmless eyes, and a brief summary of the charges: breaking and entering, stalking, criminal harassment. Within 2 days, the story went national. Turns out, I wasn't Marcus's first victim. A woman in Connecticut came forward, then another in New Jersey. Both had dated Marcus briefly. Both had reported strange break-ins after the relationships ended. Both had been dismissed by police as paranoid or attention-seeking. Sound familiar? The prosecutor assigned to my case, Assistant District Attorney Lauren Kim, 8 years in the department, called me on a Thursday afternoon. We've connected him to at least 4 other victims, she said. 2 are willing to testify. The others are still working through it. 4 other victims? That we know of. There might be more. I thought about all those journal entries. 14 months of obsession. 4 other women, maybe more, who'd experienced the same thing I had, who told their sisters, their mothers, their friends, who were told they were dramatic, paranoid, imagining things. How bad is it going to be? I asked. The trial? Adia Kim was quiet for a moment. You have the video, you have the photographs, you have his journals in his own handwriting, but his attorney is going to try to paint you as someone who led him on, someone who encouraged his attention. You need to be prepared for that. I barely spoke to him. I know, and will prove it, but I want you to know what's coming. The trial began in February. 4 months of preparation, depositions, evidence reviews, hours spent in Catherine Reyes's office, going over every detail of my story until I could recite it in my sleep. Marcus's defense attorney was a man named Richard Harmon. Expensive suit, silver hair, the kind of lawyer who made his living defending men like Marcus. He tried everything. He tried to argue the video was tampered with. The prosecution's digital forensics expert, Dr. Amir Patel, 12 years with the FBI's computer analysis response team, testified that the footage was genuine and unedited. He tried to argue that I'd invited Marcus into my apartment. Catherine submitted phone records, email logs, and testimony from 6 coworkers confirming that I'd actively avoided him for months. He tried to argue that the break-ins were a misunderstanding driven by genuine affection. Gerald Patterson took the stand and described the lock scratches in detail. This wasn't a lovesick boy climbing through a window, he said. This was systematic, professional, repeated. The prosecution played the video for the jury. 11 minutes of Marcus standing at my bedroom door, watching me sleep. When the lights came back on, 2 jurors were crying. Marcus took the stand on the 3rd day. He tried to explain, tried to justify, tried to spin his obsession as some tragic love story I was too blind to see. I cared about her, he said, looking at the jury with pleading eyes. I would never hurt her. I just wanted to be close to her. ADA Kim stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Donnelly, how many times did Ms. Chen agree to have coffee with you? A few times. 4 times. According to your own journals. Out of how many invitations? Silence. I counted 63 invitations over a 6-month period. 63 times you asked. 4 times she said yes. Always in a group setting. Is that correct? I don't remember exactly. Let me refresh your memory. She held up a printout. March 14th. Asked Sarah to coffee. She said yes, but brought Ellen. Annoying. March 27th. Coffee again. She talked to Mike the whole time. Need to get her alone. She looked at the jury. Does that sound like a mutual relationship to you? The verdict came on a Tuesday, March 18th. Guilty on all counts. Stalking, breaking and entering, criminal harassment across 2 states. 12 years. I was sitting in the front row when the judge read the sentence. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just sat there, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. Marcus was let out in handcuffs. He glanced at at me past, just once, and there was nothing in his eyes. No apology, no remorse, just emptiness. That was 8 months ago. I still live in the same apartment. New locks, 3 of them, plus a deadbolt. 2 cameras, one at the front door, one in the living room. A security system that alerts my phone if any sensor is triggered. I sleep fine now, most nights. Last week I got a letter in the mail, handwritten. No return address, but postmarked from upstate New York, near the correctional facility where Marcus is serving his sentence. It was from his mother. Dear Ms. Chen, I'm writing to ask you to find it in your heart to forgive my son. Marcus is not a monster. He's a troubled young man who made mistakes because he didn't know how to express his feelings properly. He needs compassion, not punishment. I hope you'll consider visiting him, or at least writing back. Maybe if you got to know the real Marcus, you'd understand. With hope, Dorothy Donnelly. I read it twice, then I threw it away. Some people only show you who they really are when they think no one's watching. Marcus thought I wasn't watching. He thought I was too anxious, too dramatic, too easy to dismiss. He was wrong. A locksmith crouched at my door, ran his finger along a dozen scratches, and asked one simple question. How many people have been inside this week? And everything changed. Epilogue. 1 year later. I got promoted last month. Senior project coordinator. Deborah called me into her office to deliver the news. She looked uncomfortable. We'd never quite recovered the easy rapport we had before the trial. You've earned it, she said. I want you to know, what happened with Marcus wasn't anyone's fault. We all missed the signs. I nodded, smiled, thanked her. But the truth is, nobody missed the signs. The signs were right in front of everyone. They just chose not to see them. I still have the flash drive. It sits in my desk drawer, tucked behind a stack of old tax returns. I haven't watched the footage since the trial. I don't need to. I remember every second. 3:17 a.m. The door opens. 11 minutes at my bedroom door. Some people ask why I didn't just move, why I stayed in the same apartment where it all happened. The answer is simple. This is my home, my space, my life. He doesn't get to take that from me too. A few months after the trial, Detective Chandler called with an update. We found 2 more women, she said. Both in Connecticut. Same pattern. Dated him briefly, then the break-ins started. One thought she was going crazy for years before she saw the news about your case. Are they okay? They're getting there. A pause. What you did, going public, showing that video at work, it gave them permission to come forward. You should know that. I didn't feel like a hero, I just felt tired. But knowing I wasn't his only target, knowing there were others out there who'd been gaslit and dismissed and told they were imagining things, it made the whole nightmare worth something. My sister Leah came to visit last weekend. We were sitting on my couch, drinking wine, watching some bad reality show, when she suddenly muted the TV. I need to say something. I looked at her. When you called me, that night, about the cologne, she stared at her glass. I should have believed you. I should have come over. I should have... Leah, I told you that stress does weird things to memory. I basically called you crazy. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. She looked up at me, eyes wet. You're my sister. You called me scared and I brushed you off. I'll never forgive myself for that. I put my hand on her arm. It's okay. You're here now. She sniffed, nodded, unmuted the TV. We didn't talk about it again, but something between us healed that night. The last thing I'll say is this. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, when your coffee mug moves, when your curtains open, when the air smells like cologne that doesn't belong, don't let anyone convince you you're imagining it. You're not paranoid. You're not dramatic. You're not crazy. Someone is just very, very good at making you think you are. Marcus thought no one would believe me. My sister thought I was stressed. My mother thought I was anxious. My best friend thought I was dramatic. They were all wrong. And now he's serving 12 years in a cell while I'm sitting in my apartment, drinking coffee from my world's okayest sister mug, watching the sunset over Maple Avenue. Some people only show you who they are when they think no one's watching. I was watching, and I'm still here.